Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. This is on. Hi guys. So, like you said, I'm Ivy. I'm the president for the OU Game Developers Association. Today's panel is going to focus around like indie game development and how, over the years, as the industry has changed, that has also changed the culture of game development within kind of like the indie circle. There's been a lot of big things as of recent news within game development. A lot of that not so great, some of it good. But as kind of like the culture and work changes and the new technology we face within the industry changes, that trickles down to the indie level, and it affects it in a pretty large area. So with me, I have Zach Fierce, who is the lead developer for Bombfest. I have Marisa, who is the 3D lead art director for Bombfest. And then I have Leonard, who's a member of RunJumpDev. So without further ado, I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Hey, friends. Like Ivy said, my name is Zach, lead developer of Bombfest. I don't know how to, there's my face and some stuff about me, and I don't remember what's on here. I apologize. Apparently I studied at the University of Akron. I majored in computer science, minor in entrepreneurship. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a while. I've been a professional game developer for about 6 years, 4 years full-time, so just supporting myself on the side with some jobs, but focusing on game development primarily. I specialize in UI, UX, and mechanic design, so the programming that actually makes things happen and the overlying systems that create mechanics. We released our first commercial game, Bombfest, on all major platforms in 2019. That was about three and a half weeks ago, and you can play it behind that wall if you haven't done so already. And I'm really not good at these, but we're gonna struggle together. This is so confusing. I'm good at games, not this. I teach high school game development at Cleveland International High School and the Northern Career Institute at their Success Academy. And that is high schoolers who are looking to figure out what to do with their lives. And I say, games, that's programming, that's art, that's business management, that's just about everything. And a lot of jobs come from those things. So it's kind of a shotgun style of figuring out what people want to do with their lives. Throw this stuff at them and see what happens.
Now we get a good look at my face. My name is Marisa Hike. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts with a focus in Gaming and Simulation Arts at Shawnee State University. I kind of set mine up in a little bit of a different way. I actually graduated fairly recently, so I decided to put up some of the game projects that have brought me to where I am today, as well as some other areas within the gaming community that I've been a part of. Right now, I am a full-time freelance 3D artist. So starting off with a group project that I started in college, which kind of led to me meeting Zach and working on Bombfest. My first release title came out in 2019. And then I also have Wild West and Wizards, which will be coming out early access on Steam also this year. For the business aspect, I've helped Zach work on Bombfest, manage it, social media stuff, we'll get into that in a minute, as well as at Shawnee State University, I was sent out as a missions representative to go out and recruit students who are interested in game development. I've also taught as a 3D art tutor at Shawnee during my time there, and with that, I decided to also work a little bit and spent some time at Game U to teach a younger audience game development before I decided to go full-time freelance. So that's a bit about me.
So to talk about what we do, we mentioned Bombfest before. Like Ivy mentioned, I'm the lead developer on this project, and Marisa is our art director. It's a physics-based party game, easy to learn, simple controls, and the matches are relatively quick, within 3 to 5 minutes. It's a goofy little game. You got to see it in action to really understand why it's chaotic, and it's maybe more so a joy to watch, even if you're not playing. But do give it a chance to check it out. And like we mentioned before, this is our first published title. So we're out there. We've been paid for stuff. It's scary, but that's getting the industry, I guess. So yeah.
Hello. Oh, hi. Hi, my name is Leonard Wedderburn. I am a VR AR developer from Lexington, Kentucky. So I studied at BCTC, Blue Cross Community Technical College. I got my associate's in computer science. I've been focused on game development for about 6 years now. I released my first game in 2014 called Neonave. Unfortunately, it's been taken off the Play Store. I can explain that if you want to know. The board, and also I'm a board member of RunJumpDev, which is the shirt I'm wearing. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Also, I'm a developer of VR AR games since 2015, and just AR games, VR games, experiences, and just anything that involves immersive tech. Been focused on that for about a few years now as well. And so also, I graduated from BCTC and then became a professor at BCTC. So I teach game development and game production and animation online. All right. Ooh, that's so sad. It got pixelated like that, but that's fine. I'm so sorry, Amanda. So RunJumpDev, what is RunJumpDev? Well, RunJumpDev is in Lexington, Kentucky, it's a nonprofit game developer organization that's powered by, honestly, the people in it. We do plenty of events, and also we have weekly meetups on Tuesdays at Awesome Inc. downtown at 7 p.m. in case you ever want to go down. Might be about 2 hours, 3 hour trip based on where you live from here. And also we have monthly meetings as well that we do with our sister organization called Game Dev Lou. And so it's kind of been interesting. So I've been part of this organization for a while now. I think it was December 19th, 2012. I think was the first meeting I went to at 7 p.m. The reason why I remember it because 2 days before my birthday. But so the thing is that I was able to be part of an organization of game developers locally. And that helped me to be able to build up to where I am now, being able to build and create games by myself and to be able to release products as well. So, yeah.
You can't see it that well, but I wanted to mention this picture because if you guys haven't seen this game, it is nuts.
Yeah.
What does Amanda call that project?
So this right here is it's called the 1,000 Buttons Project. You actually look at that up on Twitter. It's actually a hashtag 1,000 Button Project. It's pretty much her goal was to create 1,000 button gamepad, pretty much. But this one right here is 100 buttons, and it plays a game, which is a fighting game, in which every time you press a button, something different happens in the game. And so it's just amazing to just see people playing a game and just like hitting banging on it pretty much, and just letting go, stuff like that. It's a fighting game, and nobody knows exactly how to play it well, just because it's so crazy. Because it's a really button mashing. If you want to button mash and do a fighting game, this is the game for you. I mean, because that's all you do. But yeah, she's been working on this for past couple of years now, and so there's videos about it. She's been everywhere in Canada and also South Korea recently too. So she's been working on that for some time and building those out as alternate controls and stuff. So there's one thing also I'll talk about real quickly. There's a event that we're having in Richmond, Kentucky, which is about a few minutes away from Lexington. It's called Vector. Vector is kind of like this, actually. We have speakers coming in from different organizations, different companies. We've had folks from Bungie in the past. We have folks from Microsoft and everything that are going to come up. And so this year, actually, I don't know if I can talk about who I have this year or not. I think it was posted. So go to Vector. If you go on Twitter and go to Vector, the Twitter handle, you'll be able to see exactly who has been talked about. Because I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it. I can't remember if they posted it or not. It might have been a dream or something like that, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, we're having Vector, and it's in April. Check us out. You can come down, and pretty much it's like this panels and talks and everything, and you can also meet people and also network as well. So it's really a good chance for folks in this area of the States and everything to be able to come together. Yeah. So.
All right.
Test. I always never know if this is on or not. But yeah, so the way this is working is I'm going to get the ball rolling with one or two questions, and then we'll open the floor up to you guys. Just kind of a little background myself and how I met these guys. In high school, I was really interested in game development, and RunJumpDev was kind of the first organization that gave me the leeway into game development. I came in as a sophomore, I think. I don't know if Leonard remembers. I think a sophomore.
Remember that?
A very like young, eager individual, and you guys very so graciously took me in. And then fast forward to here when I was a freshman in OU, and Zach and Marisa were one of the first people I networked with in my journey to kind of like understand the industry and learn and grow. So it's been a really rewarding experience so far, and it's nice to see that there is opportunities and places for encouragement kind of at all levels, especially in a place like Kentucky where you wouldn't normally expect game development to grow. RunJumpDev was kind of like the savior there. Because I remember I saw an article for a VR game that somebody from RunJumpDev had made. I don't remember who those specific members were.
That was probably Daydream Blue by
Yes.
Ralph VR.
Yeah, and I shot them an email, and that's how I found you guys.
Cool.
That kind of sent me headfirst in game development. So I guess the first question I want to say to get the ball rolling is something that I've posed to you guys before of, as the industry has grown and as you guys have grown with the industry, you guys have said you've been doing this for a couple of years now. How have you had to adapt for that? We know attitudes towards work have changed. New technology has arose, like the Switch and stuff like that. How have you guys had to adapt to that, and how has that changed your process?
First? Okay. Hopefully I don't go too long. Poke me if I go too long. So one thing for me was very interesting. It was in 2015. I had tried the DK1 from the Rift, and I wasn't amazed by it. I don't know why, but in 2015, I was able to participate in the Oculus Game Jam which they had, and it was kind of, so I went ahead and bought the $200 Gear VR, and I had a Note 4, and I was like setting up to create the game, and so it was my first gaming experience I ever created. And so after the jam was over, I had this $200 piece of equipment, and I was like, I have no idea what to do with this anymore. And so it was kind of like, I need to use this. So one thing that really changed was that they were able to, the idea is that in the most recent years, there's become hardware and technology that has allowed for the expressiveness of immersive tech. And so being able to actually get your hands on some of that tech has really like guided me to actually, be more creative and to think about exactly how to immerse people in virtual reality and now augmented reality. So that's one big change, honestly, that I've come to understand is that there's something that's new, that's different, and we're all learning and doing it at the same time. And so you just got to you don't have to really keep up because we're all at the same level. We're all pretty much 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds pretty much in the tech. So it's been pretty much fine. But that's one thing that's been really for me is just trying to use what is out there already.
I'd definitely say as a 3D artist, software is constantly changing all the time. I know towards the end of university with like PBR and Substance Designer and Painter just kind of exploding out of the blue, being able to keep up with techniques, I'd say, like how can I get my work done faster, more efficiently, especially with like the gaming industry being so quick. The people that I work for have like very quick deadlines in mind because they want to get their game out there, Even then, like within software, how it's purchased for an individual freelancer, I felt like had changed a lot, where I could originally just kind of like purchase a software and I'd be like, okay, I have this software for all eternity. But with Adobe's Creative Cloud and doing it on a per month basis, there was kind of a slow transition where a lot of software, like majority of software, like that's what they do now. So in order for me to continue my life as a 3D freelance artist, I have to be able to budget my money very well and be able to like hit those deadlines very quickly, keep like knowing what's current software wise, so that way I can afford the software to keep doing what I do each day.
When I think about changes in the indie industry, I think a lot about what consumers are looking for, what kind of services or features or products they're interested in investing in, purchasing. And a number of years ago, especially when Bombfest was first thought of, back when it was known as a game called Well Wishes, we were kind of in a local multiplayer renaissance. We had a bunch of local multiplayer games come out of the blue, games like Towerfall and Gang Beasts, and a bunch of things. Nidhogg was another big one at the time, where it was just, oh wow, these are PC games. Primarily, they were released on PC first. And they're local multiplayer. People have to buy controllers and connect them to play these things, and they're selling. They're hitting a niche that I didn't know existed. And growing up, I love Smash Bros. I love games where I could sit down on the same couch with people and have a good time, right? There's nothing like that online can replicate. And I think that still exists. With Bombfest itself, we're seeing that people enjoy the game, but now they're asking for different things that we can potentially add to it. There's been a lot of demand for mobile, for example, which when I was growing up, you didn't play games on your phone. Like, you had like one or two, and that was it. Nowadays, you're playing Fortnite on your phone. That's nuts. Hopefully we'll be playing Apex Legends on our phones here soon, because I'll be playing that. And it's ridiculous to me. It blows my mind. Why would you want to play a full game on your tiny little screen with crappy, in comparison, in my mind, controls? But that's what people want. That's what the consumers are looking for. They're looking for online multiplayer. Back in my day, I went to my friends' houses and we'd play 1 or 2 games all night. And I felt like that was the trend back in the day. I very well could be wrong. I might have been in a niche of my own. But these days, it's a lot more distributed. I'm not going over to my friend's house, but I still want to play games with them. As a society, we've become a lot more detached with social media and the way we communicate. Not necessarily a bad thing, but definitely a different thing that needs to be addressed in different ways. And this and more has really shown us, this market's ever evolving. And sometimes, in some ways, technology's been changing, like in the development of Bombfest. Back then, the Switch was just a rumor called the NX. And I'm like, I want my game on that. I don't care what it is. I want my game on that. And then the Switch came out, and I said, wow, I really want my game on that. And thank God we were able to do that too, which is incredible. But no matter what Nintendo was releasing, I would have wanted a game on there, and I knew consumers would want it, right? Even if it was the Wii U. But in other ways, it's constantly evolving. Like, there's going to be new tech out there. VR is growing, and there's other forms of entertainment that are picking up. We're starting to get killer apps in areas we wouldn't expect them, like mobile games or VR games that people are household names. Like CRUD, like the aforementioned Fortnite on your mobile, or like Beat Saber or Arizona Sunshine when it comes to VR. When people think of VR games, there's a handful that come to mind immediately. That's cool. That wasn't always the case. It was just, you can put a headset on and see Google Maps, or do some tilt brush, which is still pretty sick. But now we can just see how society is evolving and moving in that way. And it means we have to make different decisions as we make our games. I know a large number of local multiplayer developers, such as myself, and a number of us are saying, do we need to pivot towards online, like now? And for a number of us, I think the choice is clear. For other of us, maybe we found our community where it's okay, like fighting games. Those will just about always be local. I don't see that changing as much. And I wanted to mention like Twitch and YouTube. Like when you went to see Game Media, back in the day, you bought Nintendo Power or PC Magazine or something like that, and you'd figure out what the new game is. After that, when I was growing up, it was YouTube. I watched Total Biscuit. I watched people like the Grumps when they were earlier on, and I watched communities that would play games and say, these guys play games. I can see what the game's about. Nowadays, I go to Twitch. Like, I go there. I see people live. I ask them the question I'm burning to ask during the YouTube video, right? Like, I don't know. How does this work? Are there unlockable characters? So on and so forth. I get that response. It's incredible. Just like video killed the radio star, YouTube's not going away, but Twitch is trying to kill the YouTube star. And we got to ask ourselves, is this worth investing in? Should we be throwing our money into this? I don't think, as a developer myself, I know how to handle Twitch. I don't know how to throw money or do contracts. Big companies, I'm not sure they do as much either. But I think the industry's shifting there, even in marketing or influencers. We got to ask ourselves, what's next? Where do we invest? Because if we don't hop on whatever's next, we may get left behind. Or we might find a niche that never goes away. People still play vinyls somehow. I don't know. They don't fit in my CD player.
I do have something I want to say. something that changed a lot within Bombfest. I remember when I first started working with Zach, we were super excited because we had just been greenlit on Steam. And the killing of Steam Greenlight was such a huge impact on how we've even done now on Steam, where I would say majority of our sales tend to come from consoles. We lasted, I think, maybe an hour on the 90 minutes on the front page of Steam when we finally released, and that's after people wishlisting us and whatnot. Did you want to say something about that?
By the end of the day, there were 52 new releases ahead of us. That's insane.
And I'd say that was a huge change because throughout, especially early college, whenever I was looking to see what the new game was, I went to the Steam front page and would see what's come out, what's really big, and that was a huge change than what we expected from the beginning of development towards the end now, since we've released.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question to that before I open it up for the audience is, you mentioned how you felt like you and other indie developers felt you had to start moving to online multiplayer more, just as other games do. So I guess my follow-up question would be, do you necessarily feel that pressure to adapt the AAA industry, and as they get new technology and new techniques and new game modes, so to say, do you guys feel that same pressure? Or do you feel like you don't necessarily have to worry about it?
Good question. In some ways, no. I was asked a few times today when we're adding Battle Royale to Bombfest. And while I think that'd be incredible to see 100 people standing on the same Lazy Susan or the same little sink, it wouldn't be as fun. You get stuff like that. I've gotten lots of silly questions like that. I shouldn't say that's a silly question. I should say that's a question which I've thought and considered about in the past and decided not to move forward on. It's not a silly question because it could always be an option. Something like DLC we've been asked about. And from the start, I've said I want to provide a game as a service rather than a game with microtransactions. So it's interesting. A lot of these things that bigger companies are doing, which in some ways are working. Take a look at Team Fortress 2, the original example of microtransactions. It's still alive and well. It should have died 5 years ago. How does that game keep going? I don't know. It's still fun, too. Overwatch, while they keep using the picture of their loot box for all the controversial loot box, legal articles on PC Gamer and whatnot, is still cited as one of the best examples of loot boxes in games. Nobody really talks about hating those loot boxes. And hopefully that keeps up as long as Blizzard keeps a good rein on that. In other ways, yeah, I think change is necessary to adapt. In some ways, we want to build the game that we want to play. And I want to play a local co-op adventure game where you swing swords and shoot bows and arrows. But then I went to GDEX in Columbus, and the judges of our pitch competition said, "This is great. The bombs are the best part." And I said, they like bombs. So now the game is called Bombfest, and it's all bombs. And I want to make that game I want to play, but in reality, we need to serve the consumer. You can make what you want, but will someone buy it? And you want to make something that people want to invest in. So a lot of our decisions need to be in support of the consumers so that they feel supported and that we meet a need that they have. You can't just make a need and then try and meet it. You need to find one or identify one that wasn't identified before and provide a solution to it. So in that way, I would say, in some ways, yeah, we gotta meet the demand and the changes of technology and AAA. We're never gonna have the money they have, of course, which means we gotta be scrappier and try bigger risks. But in some ways, we do have to, some of us would say, bend to society's will and start adding those microtransactions and so on. But it's important. We're here to serve the community. That's the only way a business makes money, when it meets a need for the people it serves. So, yeah, if the community changes, we got to change to meet it.
I'm going to challenge that statement because the artist within me, I was sitting there reflecting on what Zach said, and I would say a huge part of indie development and a huge draw it has towards people is to be able to have the creative expression to be able to make the game that you want to play and to explore ideas that a lot of the AAA industries don't explore. I'd say that's a very tricky question because on one hand, you want your company to succeed. You want your small business to make money. On the other hand, you also want to hold the ideals and the foundation that you built your company off of. I know for Bombfest, like, we really valued like multiplayer, camaraderie, those just silly, goofy, happy moments that you have when something crazy happens in a game. And I know, talking to Ivy a little bit earlier today, she mentioned how like Valve had purchased the creators of Firewatch and that they kind of absorbed that company, that indie company. And when I reflect upon, like, if somebody came up to us, for example, and they're just like, we're interested in Bombfest, like Bombfest 2 even, like, would you guys be willing to do this for a lot of money? I think it would be a huge, like, struggle, because on one hand, like, it would be great to be able to be financially supported and to live out the dreams that we've always wanted to live, you know? But on the flip side, I think it's important to find a company that agrees with the ideals and that foundation that you built yourself off of, and that they're willing to work with you in order to like reach that goal, you know? It shouldn't be something where they just like buy you out and kind of like wipe you off the map or change your idea that you had in your head. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
I'm going to pick up on multiple thoughts you both said. So one thing is that we, as indie developers, we take a chance. I mean, we decide that we're going to start the project, create a repo, start getting assets, start putting this stuff together. We do this in our spare time if it's not the one way that we make money full time. So it's a part-time job pretty much. And so you have to really dedicate yourself to actually this part-time job, because you're the one doing it. Unless you have a team like y'all and everything, I'm by myself pretty much creating all this stuff. And so that's really the real big struggle, because with AAA, they have 100 and 300 folks, multiple team, multiple studios really working on it. So for me, it's kind of like, and they know that they're going to be able to probably release something that's going to be successful. I know that I'm going to try to do something that's my idea that I think would be cool to see, but will it be successful? I don't know. I'm taking a chance. But the thing is that you're still getting out there and doing exactly what you want to do. So that's kind of the difference between the indie and AAA worlds, is that we're really getting a chance to actually go out and do exactly what you love. I mean, for you, you wanted to like blow stuff up. I mean, so that's the kind of idea, games and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, let's go ahead and do that. And so that was your idea. You fell through with it. I remember that pitch competition. I was there with you too. So I'm glad you won. I'm really glad, because my idea was stupid. But it's really, that's the one big difference. One big challenge is the difference between us and our strengths and our abilities, and for those who have multiple strengths and multiple abilities. It's a lot of hard work, but y'all can do it. I mean, it's definitely possible to release products and release games and be able to do what you love on the side while working in advertising, like I am.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to open it up to audience questions. If you guys would like to answer or ask a question, not answer, there's a mic. You can ask questions if you want. I don't know if you're going to answer them. There's a mic right there. So without further ado.
You said we could actually ask questions?
If you want to, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll wait till people have asked questions, then I might ask y'all questions.
Yeah. We got to share.
What kind of work have you guys encountered post-production?
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
I had this dream that I was going to release a game, and then as the millions poured in, I would take 2 or 3 days off and then get back to work on it in a stress-free environment. But let me tell you, it has been all stress since release. As far as like post-production, post-producing the game, I assume it's interesting. for being the person who does a lot of PR, I'm constantly answering emails. I probably got about 10 today from people asking about the game or commenting on Kickstarter or trying to send a message to a Snapchat we don't have and just trying to reference this stuff. Somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I get to the character select and I can't play the game. And I got to tell them, just press A a few times. I'm sorry. I wasn't clear enough, I guess. Or we get people who are like, my key doesn't work. And then they show me the key and I'm like, oh crap, that key doesn't work. Let's solve that immediately because I want to fix this. And in some ways it's a lot of work, or rather I should say it can be a lot of work. You can sit there and say every bug report that comes in, every email, every angry consumer. Cred, I remember our first angry review. It was terrifying. I sat there and said, wow, this 4 years of work, this is what I'm worth? Like my baby, you're tearing apart in front of my eyes? Like, how could you? But it's a lot. The short answer, I'm just rambling. It's a lot. It can be a lot. In some ways, you got to be responsible, and by that I mean, Zach, you need to be responsible with this stuff. You're only so much. You're a person that needs sleep and food and needs to take time to relax and enjoy the stuff that you've done. You can't sit there and enjoy it the whole time, and also you can't just work the whole time. Right now, I've been working the whole time, and it's definitely been wearing me out. But it can be a lot. We like to think of games like we do movies sometimes. We think, okay, new Avengers released. What was the blockbuster amount? Like, how much did they make opening weekend? And you see that number, and they probably have a scale that looks like this, and then it tapers off pretty quick, and it goes down, and you make a little bit by the end of it. But you're 90% first 3 days. And that can be true with games. You will see that a lot, especially with AAA titles. They treat them like that. There's one day to pay off. All the marketing goes into it. The millions and millions of dollars put into that goofy Facebook ad for that dumb sword in Fortnite. You know, something like that. Like, it's all about that spike. And unfortunately, as indies, we don't always have that budget to get that kind of spike. But what we do have is we have heart. I try and answer every email that comes in personally. I don't have canned responses. I type it out. If it's someone who I can find or gives me a reference to their social media, I check it out for a second. I try and make it personal. We have that. The AAA doesn't because they can't. Where they have money, they don't always have time. And while we don't always have money, we have time. So in some ways, post-production is hell. It's a lot of work. It can really burn you out if you're not responsible. And I'm not always responsible. Just ask my team. I'm not good at being responsible with my time. I will drop everything to answer an email if it's some customer who's a little bit dissatisfied and try and fix it. But on the other hand, it's kind of nice. I can sit here and say, I have a game on the Switch. I have a game on the Xbox. Turn on your console. You can find something I did. And I got to work with incredible people to make this happen too. And we get to see all of our skills come together to make something bigger than any of us could have done alone. So mostly, yes, it's terrifying, but also there's some joy to be found there. So hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you.
I will say there's one thing you should not start in post-production, and that is creating your fan base and advertising about it. You need to be doing that beforehand. You need to create that fan base, because what they're going to do is that they're going to word of mouth. They're going to be talking about your game that you're working on and stuff like that. The marketing it is so hard because there's so much out there. So you really need to make sure that as you pre-production, production, post-production, you need all the whole process be talking to your fans, talking to your community, building that up, being out there, and that could really just help you in the end be able to be financially good. So, yeah.
Hi. My question is, where do you draw a line in between compromising your original idea with like what is wanted from an audience? Like, there might be something that you are like dead set on, like you want this werewolf in your game really badly, but everyone's saying, well, vampire would be better. So how much do you compromise, and what do you let go? What do you change? Just, yeah.
You need at least 2 models for a werewolf. You need the wolf model and the man model. For a vampire, it's a lot easier because it's just one.
Thank you.
Gosh, yeah, I'll get there in a sec. My original answer was just like, I'd say time is a huge part and like what you have available. Keeping an eye out of the kind of game that you're making and like how long you expect it to still be like a popular genre, because genre is changing all the time. With what Zach had nudged me to talk about is Zach had a lot of big ideas for Bombfest. And I would say a huge benefit of there being two of us is that there's always one to reel the other person in. It was last year around the new year. Zach had come to me. We took a little bit of like some time off for Christmas, and we came back together and we're like, all right, let's recover everything. And Zach's like, Marisa, this is what I want Bombfest to be. It was a completely different game than what we had showcased at every conference prior. There were a lot of really big game design changes and gameplay changes that would have required an extra 2 years of development minimum, because it was essentially creating a new type of game. And I think it was a good idea. I think it could have been really fun, but that's where I had to be like, hey, Zach, we have already created a game that's really fun and that people already enjoy. And those kinds of ideas, while they're really great, they can always be used for another game project, for a sequel, Bombfest 2. Who knows when that'll come out. But yeah, that's just like one personal example of it. There have been times where I've wanted to do something crazy with the art. Like, I'm sure Zach could list them off, where he's like, Marisa, we don't have the time to do things like that. I wanted like assets that changed with the seasons and like just really crazy effects where it's like, oh, you know, during wintertime there's like snow and stuff, and like really silly aesthetics that like, yeah, Zach's giving me faces even right now where he's like, that's so unnecessary. But that's how we handled those kinds of situations. It helps to have like somebody else there. And we're two completely opposite ends of the spectrum within game development, where I care a lot about the aesthetics and Zach cares a lot about creating really fun gameplay. So together we're kind of able to collaborate and encourage each other in some ways, hold each other back in a little bit different ways. And that's how we've kind of managed through that.
To go along with that, I would say, yeah, it happens internally a lot. It's not like, so I'll give you an example. Last year, I worked on a project called Catopia, and the goal, I remember going to GDC and talking about it to folks and say, hey, Catopia is going to be a mixture of Pokemon Go and Nika Natsume. It's going to be great. And so we built it out to actually have the map portion in the game, to be able to like go different places and actually collect items and stuff like that for the cats. But being that this project was being done by about 10, 15 people that were in different states, and then suddenly we lost a good chunk of people, and also it's like a lot of work, and we just lost a lot of people, unfortunately. And so we had to decide that we're taking it out. So we pretty much scrapped the whole map portion of our game. And so then we were like, whoa, what is this game now? It's just AR and Nika Natsume, possibly. So the thing is that, so internally what happens is that you figure out that you want to do something, but you really possibly can't do it. And you have to be ready for that and be saying, okay, I got to accept this. I have to move on, because if I want to finish this product, which is really the goal that you have to actually finish release, you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to say, I'm sorry, this can't be done right now. We can't do it. And it'll be hard, but it's worth it in the end, because then you can release a game and say that you released a game. So just always keep that in mind, that you're going to have to give up possibly the greatest idea ever to have still a good idea.
Yep, thank you.
So I know that you said that you got to be on top of artwork programs and whatnot. What are your thoughts on free programs like Blender or now I can't remember it. Dang it! It's I use it for pixel art. It's like Photoshop, but it's free. GIMP, that's what it is.
Freeware is an amazing, beautiful thing where it allows even people from very impoverished or low economic areas be able to learn these techniques and to have that foundation. I would say if you're looking to get into the AAA industry, like they tend to have like very set ideas about what software you should use. I know within like the 3D modeling specific software where Blender falls in, they tend to prefer Maya or 3ds Max. Usually, like, to get an idea of those sorts of things, looking at like just job postings in general can help give you an idea of like specific software that companies might be looking for. But just as a whole, like, I love freeware. I think any software is fantastic as long as it's teaching you skills and you're able to create the product that you want to create. And that ultimately is what matters. I know within the indie development scene, like things like Blender, like everybody loves Blender. Zach loves Blender. He does not love 3D modeling, but he used Blender before I came along. For me personally, I was taught Maya throughout college, so I tend to have a preference towards that. I would say that my opinions would be different had I been taught a different user interface. But with my career, I tend to flip through a bunch of different software very quickly and just use whatever gets the job done at the end of the day.
I also want to agree with you, Marisa, about that. Blender is useful. Blender works for folks who are not able to afford Maya. GIMP works for, I mean, I always tell people, you want to start in game development, there's like 4 tools. Blender, Audacity, GIMP, and Unity. All free, get you started, and get up in there and start making stuff and whatnot. And this freedom, this freeware that we have is just really the key to how we can, do what we do. If it wasn't for those tools, then we wouldn't be doing this. But the thing is that you also need to remember that when you go into AAA studios, stuff like that, they're going to be looking for you to understand and be knowledgeable about those other tools. But the fact that you've already started learning about the 3D modeling space, like what's a face and what's a like how to extrude, all that type of stuff, that will translate over, but you still have to learn that tool. So it's going to be difficult to go from this tool to that tool, but if you want that job, you're going to have to learn that tool.
I would say too, don't forget the student discounts. Almost all of those software have a student version that's significantly cheaper. And just as a quick note as well, like Marisa mentioned, I struggled through trying to learn Blender. And I still use it to this day. The bombs and Bombfest are I design them for the most part just because I try and iterate them quickly. And they are the crappiest models in the game. But it's cool now because I can talk to Marisa in terms of 3D art. And she can try and usually string together what I'm trying to say into real words and understand what I'm saying or communicating. Working with Audacity and working with programs like GIMP and Paint.net has helped give me the skills to communicate well with people of different disciplines. So in some ways, these free tools are great for accomplishing jobs without spending a lot of money on a license, but also it means you get to learn to speak a new language that someone you're going to be working with already speaks pretty well. Working with people who do our composition for our music is great because I have a small amount of music background and I've done some work in Audacity. I know what it means to change key or to increase tempo or what percussion is versus the other parts of a song and of music. Here comes the chorus, then the percussion. So stuff like that, dumb stuff like that. And it's great. I get to talk in ways and communicate to people and communicate design. We need to be able to speak each other's languages when it comes to having different roles. And free tools is a great way to get your feet wet and just know the basics there.
What does the day-to-day life of an indie developer look like exactly?
I set my alarm for 7:30 and I get out of bed around 11, and that's on bad days. And at least one of those happened this week. It's interesting. I don't know how in depth you want to get, Like, I brush my teeth for a minute and a half at least, but 3 minutes? Is 3 minutes like a minute and a half twice a day, or 3 minutes once? Does that work?
That's just what my toothbrush does.
Why are you listening to your toothbrush? You got a psychologist for that sort of thing. You should get checked out. So it's I do what? I work out. That gets endorphins going. That keeps you happy. It fights off depression. I spend a lot of my time sitting in my computer. I answer emails mostly. I answer emails more than I do development. I spend the rest of my time communicating with our team, with our publisher, with our marketing people, and that's most of it. I spend a few hours a week streaming so that I can build a community and also be a bit of a teacher online just for free to anybody and grow relationships that way. I spend a good amount of time networking as well. But the day-to-day life is usually communication, PR, marketing, a little bit of development, and then the rest of it for me is usually trying to stay sane. So that's playing a bit of a game, keeping up on a show that people talk about so I can feel like I'm part of society again. And it's mostly work. It's mostly just trying to keep relationships going with people in the industry. It's trying to catch up on emails. And when it is development, it's sitting down and just cranking out whatever needs to be done. Usually whatever's most interesting or something that I've planned out ahead enough to know how to take the next step on. So at least for me, that's what it looks like.
And I also want to know, I'd say that would definitely be your schedule now compared to like where we were a year ago. I'd say you were a lot more like development focused, more so. So that also has to do with just like where we're at with Bombfest and where Zach's at personally. For myself, one day of the week, I might, depending on the day, it just depends on what I do. There might be a day where I have a 14-hour work day. I kid you not, that was a day last week where I worked for 14 hours and was up to like 5 a.m. There might be days where I just mainly focus on like social development. I might do like an interview, a lot of marketing research might go into that. I think it's very important to have a healthy work life though. So I find it really important for myself. I'll spend 1 hour a day minimum pursuing some sort of hobby or interest outside of my work life. I really enjoy cooking, and sometimes I'll do that. I'm like, I have to do this anyway, so why not do that whole hour of like fun time? But something I try to like explain to people who are especially looking into independent development, freelance life, like you have to stay emotionally and mentally sane. So being able to like take that time to take a step back. I definitely used to be I'm a recovering workaholic where I get a lot of satisfaction in my life in doing a lot of work, and that makes me happy. But at the same time, it's important to pursue other aspects of life besides just the like day-to-day grind.
Yeah, for me personally, since I'm part-time indie developer, it's a little bit different. Maybe a couple nights during the week, pretty much, I work on my projects, but it's mostly a lot of it's done on the weekends, so I kind of sacrifice those weekends sometimes in order to work on my projects. And a lot of communication. So for Catopia, it was a lot of communication, like our Discord was always on. We were just poking each other exactly what we're going to do, We had a meeting once a week, every Sunday. Every Sunday we had a meeting, and we all got a Discord. We communicated with each other and stuff. So that was kind of hard to do. I don't know. It's kind of hard to do. It's just like that one thing in your back of your brain. You're like, okay, we got a meeting tomorrow, so we got to prepare for it and everything. And so that's the one challenge about it. You have to keep this stuff in mind because, like I said before, you're the person working on this. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So you really have to be like dedicated, but also you need to make sure that you're mentally healthy and eating and drinking water and be able to have friends and family and enjoy life as you're doing it as well. Because you're not living if you're just depressed and not having fun. Don't let it get stressful. Let it keep it fun. But yeah, my days are just taking it here and there. I remember last year I had about like 4 jobs, I can actually say, and it was my full-time job, my part-time job, and my job for UK, and then also Catopia. So it can be really hard. Don't overwhelm yourself, definitely as well. But yeah, just find a balance. Find a balance and do what you can, and just make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well.
I don't know if you have any more time for questions. What's the time check? We have 10 minutes. Oh wow, that's 3 minutes. Okay, so we don't. So I'd like to thank you guys again for coming. I really appreciate it. Give them one more last clap.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, guys.